Hi, welcome to Fresh Takes on Tech. This season, we're digging into regenerative agriculture, not as a buzzword, but what it actually looks like on real farms. As we talked about in the last two episodes, the first one with Tamara from IFPA, and also last week with Peter Wells and their program at Elevated Foods, the industry is already doing a lot. The challenge is making it pencil out. For years, growers have been asked to adopt practices that improve soil health, water use, and resilience. But the market isn't consistently recognizing or rewarding that work. That's the gap. As we have discussed, the USDA's Advancing Markets for Producers program is trying to close the gap by connecting on-farm practices to real market value, bringing growers, buyers, and supply chain partners together to test what actually works in real operations. There's no single formula. This is about practical, farmer-first approaches that reduce risk and start to build markets that actually reward the work already happening in the field. Today, I'm joined by two people who work directly with growers every day. Nikki Cossio and Kyle Cosgrove from Measure to Improve, or MTI. Their team plays a key role in helping growers participate in AMP, from identifying practices to collecting meaningful data to connecting those efforts with supply chain partners. Nikki, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and Kyle and share a bit about what Measure to Improve does?
Good morning, Vonnie. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Nikki Cossio. I'm the CEO and founder of Measure to Improve. Measure to Improve is a sustainability consulting firm that is committed to helping the fresh produce industry prepare, respond, and communicate all things sustainable. So we are helping growers, shipper, processors respond to the ever-growing requests for compliance and data and information around sustainability, helping them respond in a meaningful way, not just check the box, but identify what the value is back to their own organization. And I'll let Kyle introduce himself.
Yeah, Bonnie, thanks for having us. Yeah, my name's Kyle Cosgrove. I've been lucky to do a lot of things across my career. For the last 20 years, I've been a struggling organic farmer, I'd say. I also managed wine grapes at scale. We managed about 1,500 acres of organic wine grapes in the Paso Robles region. Had a small family farm where we grew hops and barley for a beer brand that we had. And then I worked for the USDA administering farm programs back in the day. It's a really great experience working with hundreds of farmers across San Luis Obispo County and just seeing their struggles. Really been working on this grant, which I thought was a great opportunity to kind of step back from the day-to-day of production ag and get outside of the bubble that you get in when you're a grower and just look at what other people are doing and look at what the industry needs are.
And it's great for you to have that USDA background, because I working with grants, as you know, is a challenge. And so it's great that, you can step in and understand what they want, because sometimes that's a bit of a challenge. So great background you both have, and really great to work with you. So Nikki, let's move to you. From your perspective, working directly with growers, what problem is the AMP program really trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, but it really comes down to three things. The first is the opportunity to provide this proof of concept, making sure that these conservation practices actually work in practice across real farms, different growing regions, different crop types, different soil types. That makes operational and financial sense for growers, so that after the grant wraps up, other growers are armed with the information needed to have the confidence and some assurances that these practices actually work. The second thing we need to solve for is the education and alignment across the supply chain. We're using terms like sustainable, regenerative, climate smart without really a shared definition or understanding of what that actually means in practice. And so without that alignment and that true understanding, we can't clearly communicate the benefits or the value of what it means to produce these crops using these practices, or build that real demand that's needed for the third problem or the opportunity which we're trying to solve for, and that's advancing markets. And this is really where it all comes together. Um, this is an opportunity to provide new opportunities for growers. And what has happened in the past couple of years is that the request for regenerative and sustainability has moved ahead of the proof of concept or the alignment on what it means. Right now, we have large retailers and CPG companies that have set these really ambitious goals around regenerative products, all with really good intentions. And in theory, it sounds great and very doable, but growers are being asked to implement changes without the confirmation that these work before anyone defines what good looks like. So, what this AMP has done is create a program to test these practices while reducing risks for growers by providing some financial and technical support through the grants. And it gives us the time to begin documenting what this means in practice, align on definitions, and a way for all of us in the supply chain to participate and make a positive difference. So it really boils down to proof of concept, alignment on the definition, and advancing markets for growers.
That's a great answer. Thank you. I think that's the most complete explanation I've heard of the grant. So thanks a lot. So, Kyle, when you working directly with the growers, what is the biggest hesitation about trying new conservation or regenerative practices that you've seen?
There's a few hesitations. They hesitate because experimentation is super risky and it can get expensive. You're putting livelihoods on the line to try new things. There's going to be some hesitation there. And then just time. Time is really precious for growing operations. We're extremely busy and we just manage so many variables on the day to day. And when you only have like one chance to get it right or one season to get it right, trying to change something is not always fun. So the process is just slow. Trying something new, proving it out, just has to be done with caution.
Well, it's great that you have the background that you have, that you're able to understand that because it is, you are playing with people's livelihoods. So you have to be very cautious and helpful. So, Nikki, where do you see things breaking down today between what happens on the farm and then what the market recognizes?
I think foundationally, the story is not being shared past the farmer's gates. I think growers are already doing a lot of the work. They're already trialing a lot of these practices. They're trying new technology. They're managing their water, their energy, their labor, all in the name of efficiency and, improving the bottom line. And one of the things that Measure to Improve always says, sustainability always must include a good business case that translates into environmental and social benefits. And so the challenge is the story doesn't get told. And this industry is always accused of not telling their story. And as a result of this, buyers and consumers, to Kyle's point, really don't see the cost and the effort and the trade-offs and the risks of trying something new. So the value doesn't always translate, even when the right things are happening. So, there's a reason the story doesn't get told. It's very complicated. There's a million stories to tell. It wasn't until recently that people really cared where their food came from and how it was grown. It takes time to tell the story. It takes resources to tell the story. And quite frankly, there's really no clear consensus on what story should be told. So as growers, there's a lot of story to tell, but it's complicated. So what really resonates? And I think that's the biggest challenge with the breakdown between the farm. What the market recognizes is the story is lost in translation.
So the program is described as farmer first, and I know the USDA this is one of their big focuses is that we're working with farmers. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, the farmer, this entire program revolves around the grower. They're first in line. They're the ones that are implementing the practices. They're the ones throughout this entire process is going to help us provide feedback on what's working, what's not working. They're the ones that are ultimately making the decisions based on what's good for their operation. So the growers have the flexibility to make the decisions on what practices they're going to use. And really the lion's share of the funding is going directly to them. Now, we say farmer first, but it doesn't mean farmer only. The growers serve as the main characters in this whole grant process. But for this to actually work, we are going to need the full supply chain support to show up to participate for this to be successful. So it starts with the farmer, but it doesn't end with the farmer. And we all have a shared responsibility to move this forward.
So, Kyle, how does the program reduce the risk for growers who are trying something new? How is it a risk reducer?
Usually these growers, they know what they want to do, they know what they need to do. It really comes down to having the resources sometimes to address those challenges or those problems that they face. This program was designed specifically to fit in that space, that gap of, what I want to do but can't, or what I have to do but can't. So it gives them financial capital or that cushion to invest in new techniques or new tools or new technologies, things that make them more efficient, things to make them better stewards of the land. Every grower wants to do that. But do they have the capital to invest in that? It's not cheap. Aside from that, we're offering technical support. We have a whole team of agronomists and soil scientists and really smart, educated people that can help. We can help you find new technologies. We can help you find new materials. These growers are being really innovative. So, farming is dynamic. So we're encouraging growers to just be strategic with these incentives, to start slow, to build over the next 3 years, because it's a 3-year project.
So if I'm a grower entering the program, what does it look like the first 60 to 90 days? What are you asking them to do? What's the reporting? How are you working with them?
What does the first 60 to 90 days look like? We always start with introductions. We have to build trust. We have to build relationships. So we take it slow and break it into manageable bite-sized pieces. This trust and these long-term relationships across the supply chain is going to be the backbone of this project. We are trying to build communities, trying to provide resources to everyone that needs them. So, we align with the grower. We make sure the program is a good fit for their operation. We talk through some of the eligibility requirements, and then we start to focus on the practices and the challenges that they want to address on their farms. That's what 60 to 90 days looks like. Usually they're off and running after that. They're already implementing practices. They're getting the resources they need to do that.
So, Nikki, what are they being asked to do that's new or different?
In terms of the practices themselves, cover cropping and composting. And by the way, they have 8 conservation practices to choose from. The practices themselves aren't new. In fact, growers have adopted these over time. What's really new is the structure, the intention of this, the grant. It's documenting the processes throughout. So throughout this process, we're going to be capturing the information along the way. We're going to be asking the growers questions. We're going to ask them to be clear about why they're trying these practices. What are their expectations and outcomes that they are hoping to achieve? So that at the end, we can go back and say, did this meet your expectations? What did you learn about this? What worked? What didn't? What were some of the challenges? Again, it's all about capturing that proof of concept, which that's new. We are going to pause and take time to capture that. The other thing that's different is that growers aren't alone. This grant is really unique. We're not just funding this and say, go figure it out. To Kyle's point, we are offering that technical support. We're helping them document. We're helping them communicate. We're helping them collect that data. So not new practices. It's just more of a structured way and a supported way to test and learn from these growers.
So in the testing and the measurement, Kyle, this is such a big part of it. How are you collecting data without overwhelming them, asking them to collect all sorts of data that they wouldn't have ordinarily?
Generously, the USDA reduced the data points that they're requiring. So we're going to just start with the minimum required data and And a lot of that looks like stuff their growers are already tracking. So yields, certain inputs, and field activities. So it's really not an overwhelming amount of data that we need to collect. And a lot of it is on us. The majority of it is on us to collect and report. So aside from that, we're very conscious about growers and the barriers that data collection can create. So we're keeping it simple. We're making the process streamlined and make sure that the data that growers are required to collect is useful to them. So they see something coming back to them.
So, Kyle, this program isn't just about practices, it's about connecting those practices to market value. What does that look like today?
Like Nikki mentioned, growers now have to educate people about food and food systems. So they have to hire marketing teams. They have to pay for certifications that resonate with buyers. They have to meet regulatory requirements. And this is all to like educate consumers and meet market demands. Growers are now also educators, they're teachers. They are, on top of that, they're still stewards of the land. They produce healthy, nutritional food at really fair prices in the US. And I just saw a stat the other day, two stats. Less than 1% of the population grows the food here. So 99% of the population is disconnected from agriculture. Creates a lot of confusion. Also, growers in the US produce enough food to feed 1 billion people. We're feeding the world, essentially, and 1% of the population is doing that. So, is there value in that? Absolutely. But like never before, growers now need to tell this story about how your food is grown and where it grows and how it gets to your shelves. Growers need advocates at this point, and they need to be understood and valued for what they do.
Exactly. So, Nikki, where do you see a gap between what growers are doing and what buyers understand?
Again, it's in that storytelling. Growers are doing the work. The practices aren't new, but we haven't had to document them for the market. And how do we explain this, right? Things are changing. So what do customers really care about at the end of the day? And what should we help them understand is important to care about? They might not know what is important to care about. And so I think, again, we need to work together across the supply chain. Buyers are asking for regenerative and climate smart outcomes with really not understanding the risks involved, the timing that it takes for changes to come, the trade offs. So the work is happening, but until it is clearly communicated, it's not going to show up as a value add to growers. We have to go beyond that farmer's gate.
So let's move on to the role of Measure to Improve and IFPA. So we're working together on this program, and we couldn't do this with IFPA. Couldn't do this without you, and you couldn't do this without us. And so it's a great partnership. So Kyle, to you, you're working directly with growers every day. What does that look like in us working together?
At this point, we're just doing a lot of listening. We're having a lot of conversations with stakeholders across the supply chain, and it's exciting. To hear growers' stories, to hear what they're thinking about, to hear their challenges. It's eye opening. Yeah, a lot of brainstorming. We're just trying to understand what the needs are.
Nikki, what do you see as MTI's role in making this program work? And then also, how do you see that MTI and IFPA complement each other?
So to Kyle's point, MTI, we're really boots on the ground. We have great relationships. We're close to the growers. We're helping support the implementation, understanding, pulling, and documenting that so the grower doesn't have to. IFPA really has a broader reach in the industry. Your relationships with the buyers and the retailers and across the supply chain really complements what we do. So together we bring the on the ground reality and hopefully connect it to the markets. So we're very lucky to have each other because we uniquely contribute to this project to make it successful.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's look at kind of what's next and where we are. So Nikki, where are we today in the program life cycle?
Kyle and the team, they are re-engaging with growers that we had in the previous grants. We are also recruiting new growers. We're getting everybody through the eligibility and the onboarding and the contract signing in concert with the support from IFPA. We are doing this together. This is a lot of work up front. Again, to Kyle's point, we're really working on building trust with the participants. We're showing up and demonstrating we are here. We're here with them. We're here to help you. So again, a lot of the work up front, and we're building that foundation so the program can expand and we're successful, to the next phase.
So Kyle, what do you expect as things move into implementation? What things are you looking to do?
From what we experienced the last time, just expects a lot of creativity from these growers, a lot of innovative approaches. They're trialing state-of-the-art technologies, laser weeders, biological inputs. So just expect more of that, and we'll see these practices trialed in different regions and different cropping systems, and we'll start to see results from those trials. And so those are going to be incredibly valuable examples to other growers of what's possible. And there's thousands of farmers across the country doing these practices. Expect this to expedite this process.
Nikki, what are you most focused on getting right in this next phase as we go into launch?
At Measure to Improve, we feel this huge weight and this responsibility to get the story right. It's not just about collecting the data, it's translating it into something that is simple, clear, and meaningful. And it's got to be meaningful to the growers so that these practices can be duplicated or avoided if they don't work moving forward. But also we need to translate it into something that's digestible for consumers so that they appreciate and understand how complex and hard it is to get this type of work to, the grocery store shelves. So if we don't communicate well, it's not going to resonate. It won't drive adoption, and we won't create the demand that we need. And so getting that story right for us is really important. And it's going to help build that momentum beyond the grant.
So as you said earlier, this is described as farmer first. And as you also said, it's not farmer only. So where does the rest of the industry fit into this whole program, Nikki?
So the rest of this industry needs to show up as partners. We've got vendors and solution providers and advisors that need to support this implementation. We've got retailers and buyers that need to show up and get involved and ask questions. And also not only ask questions, but they're the ones doing all of the work, with the consumers. Help them tell that story. We need associations and educators to align and alignments across the board and share the knowledge. We want this to be very inclusive. We want to encourage groups to be a part of this solution and not just on the sidelines.
So if you're a retailer or a buyer listening, what should they be doing right now?
Get involved.
Yeah.
Questions. Understand what the growers are doing. Understand the risks that they're taking. Understand what it actually takes to implement these practices. When I say ask questions, if they don't know what questions to ask the growers. What should we be asking you? What do you want us to know about your operation? How do we be a part of the solution? Show up to the field days, build these relationships with the growers. So get involved, stay curious, help us shape the story so it benefits everybody. Help us tell that story about why it matters so that we value into the market. So we advance the markets, open more markets for these growers, drive consumption, drive demands.
That's good for all of us, right? So Kyle, if a grower is listening to this, and as you both said, we're still trying to recruit growers. So if a grower is listening to this and is kind of on the fence, what would you want to say to them?
Yeah, just reach out. We're happy to have the conversation. As far as we've seen, this is one of the most grower-friendly projects out there. And those are testimonials from growers that participate in this. And likewise, I looked for these types of opportunities for 20 years and just see them now, especially for specialty crops. The resources and the opportunities to connect are real. And it's just a chance to get creative and innovative, and to create awareness. We need this.
No, it's a great program. Well, Nikki and Kyle, thank you so much for joining us and for the work you're doing to help growers navigate this transition and this program. And thanks to all of you for listening. This is a complex topic, but programs like AMP give us a chance to learn together and build a stronger, more resilient future for agriculture. So thank you so much and appreciate your time and work on this program. And I will see you again soon.